Welcome back to Actors Turned Directors on eliciting the best performance from an actor. Jodie Foster interview, part five. I'll be reading from my book, which was sponsored by the Directors Guild of America, DGA. They enabled me to interview 10 A-list directors who started out as actors, who became my mentors. I was insecure, as I mentioned in my other videos. I was insecure about dealing with actors and how to elicit a great performance from them. And these 10 directors became my mentors, and the wisdom they shared with me regarding the actor director relationship is invaluable. They also shared some great secrets regarding the actual making of films, which also helped me tremendously when I made my first film. In any event, I want to pick up where I left off last time. And the first question is, when you read a script, Jodie, do you look for the setups and make sure that you have a setup and there's a payoff somewhere down the line? Jodie, sometimes when you think of things that way, it's a little too didactic. What you end up getting is a perfectly drawn screenplay that has setups and payoffs that nobody really cares about emotionally. The really good example of that is the scene in Home for the Holidays between Joanne and Claudia when Joanne says, "If I met you on the street and you gave me your phone number, I'd throw it away." And Claudia says, "I'll let myself out." Just because it's the end of the movie and just because it's the last time you see Joanne doesn't mean that she has to have some big makeup scene, which will be considered a payoff for the setup. Question: you lingered on Joanne for a long while after Claudia left, which was very symbolic because first you had the camera moving in kind of a medium shot on her, and then you went to the wide shot of her to the end of the scene. Was that something that you decided during editing or during the actual filming? Jodie, to tell you the truth, that was the only reshoot in the movie. Question: why? Jodie, because I felt I needed it. I felt like it was cheap to leave her there and say, "Oh, well, she's the enemy. We're not going to pay any attention to her anymore." The truth is, she has a very rich and complicated relationship, and she probably is the only true victim of the movie. This is a woman you should feel sorry for because she has given up her whole life and she's a good person. She's followed all the rules and she's just gotten shit on. I wanted her to be featured and to have an arc. So we went back and shot her close up. One of the nice things about being an independent company is that when you are producing and directing, you can look at yourself and say, should I reshoot that? And I say, yeah, I think so. Question: it's very important for the financiers to keep in mind that sometimes you do need to reshoot. And I wish I had that knowledge when I did my first film as a producer. Jody, absolutely. It's not just about test audiences, it's about the integrity of the movie. I also did quite a few reshoots on Little Man Tate because as a young director, I just didn't know what I was going to need exactly. Question: did you pre-budget for these things? Jody, yes. I think everybody does these days. Question: do you communicate differently with less experienced actors than you do with those who are more seasoned? Jody, you take each one individually and you talk to them in a different way. You figure out what people need. Question: do you like using multiple cameras when you do certain highly emotional scenes? Jody, not really. Not for the emotional stuff, but definitely for the Thanksgiving dinner in Home for the Holidays when I had the turkey flying and landing on the actress's lap. I didn't want to drag that actress through it too many times. Also, I knew there was going to be a mess and a lot of weird things happening. I just wanted to make sure I could cut it together later in the editing room. Question: what techniques do you use to stimulate actors to tap their emotions and give you what you need? Do you walk them through it moment by moment, or do you pretty much give them their freedom? Jodie: I let them tell me what works for them. Everybody is different. Some actors really get sick and tired of you talking to them. They just want to do it. And the more you talk to them, the more confused they get. And then other actors, like me, for example, love talking. I love hearing everything that's on the director's mind. I want to know everything he's thinking, and then I'll make choices about what's important for me to play. Question: how do you handle the temperamental actor who disagrees with your concepts and your interpretation of the character? Jodie: fortunately, I haven't had too many of those. You try to strike a balance, but ultimately, it's your movie. You don't want to be a hero on the day and then get into the cutting room and not have what you need. So that's when you need patience. Patience is probably the best way to deal with people like that. I don't believe in tempers on a movie set. I don't ever believe in people yelling. I don't think you get anywhere by that. And it ends up being very destructive to the whole process. Question: what type of environment do you try to create on the set? Jody: I like a happy set. Everybody should be having a great day. They just happen to be working at the same time. Question: who sets the tone on the set? You or your first assistant director? Jody: ultimately, it's the director's responsibility. My assistant director is great. He never yells. And more importantly, he's one of the funniest people I've ever met. We are always making jokes. Nothing is that serious. And I think that what ends up happening is that the crew loosens up. They're not so intense. They do their jobs, but they don't get burnt out by an incredibly stressful, horrible day. Question: how closely do you stick to the scripted dialogue once you lock your script? Do you allow your actors to rewrite dialogue on the set? Jody: it depends. In a movie like Home for the Holidays, there was always a certain amount of improvisation. But in general, the actors stuck to the script once we had it honed down. The only person who I really just let make up whatever he wanted was Robert Downey Jr. I would guide him and say, you know, that thing you just said, don't say that. Or make it shorter in the first part and then, mention something about her hair. Question: why only with him? Jody: Downey has an incredible, fertile, creative mind. He basically comes up with better things than most writers do. He's really one of the most gifted actors I've ever worked with. Question: what happens when you realize that you got the best performance you are going to get from an actor, but you still need more? Is there a technique to stimulate an actor to give you still more than they have? Jody: you tried the traditional method of talking about the screenplay and telling the actor what you want. But sometimes you have to come up with another plan because the actor still may not get there. You may have to say, okay, maybe he isn't having an enraged moment in this scene because he looks phony when he's enraged. Maybe he's really approaching it in a more subtle way, or with a sense of humor. Sometimes you have to change your ideas based on the limitations of an actor. Sometimes making movies is all about compromise. Question: how do you deal with an actor who needs more takes than another who is in the same scene? Jodie, that's really a tough one. Spontaneity pretty much always rules. If there's an actor who really needs a lot of takes, I'll do a lot of rehearsals and tell the actor who doesn't need as many takes just to not give everything. Question: what if you've got one actor who works by gut instinct and another who's more intellectual about it? Jody, it's really up to them to work it out. I've worked with a lot of actors with a lot of different techniques, and I don't care what they do to get there as long as they get there when we start shooting. I don't care if they have to wear funny red nose or make weird noises. It doesn't really matter to me. Question: do you ever speak through your actors while the camera is rolling? Jody, it's a really annoying habit, but sometimes I do. I have to sometimes, I should say. Dick Donner does this amazing thing. While you're actually talking during the scene, he yells at you things to do. In comedy, it's funny because it makes the comedy very chaotic. And of course, you have to loop everything. But some actors just cannot stand it. Question: but you as a director? Jody, I never talk during the takes unless I just have to say keep going or walk through the door or something. Question: do you talk to your actors privately on the set or in public in front of the crew? Jody, I usually take actors aside and give them their notes away from everybody else. Question: do you have any specific techniques to get actors to listen and respond to each other? Jody, usually I'll say, hey, listen to her. If the actors don't listen to each other, it's really, really annoying. For example, you'll be doing a scene with somebody and you haven't even finished your line of dialogue, but they are darting their eyes around, getting ready to say their lines. It makes me want to say the wrong line just to bug them. Sometimes you tell them to listen, and then sometimes you have to make sure that you are going to be able to cut in some listening pauses in the cutting room. So you have to make sure you have the coverage in order to accomplish that. This brings to a close part five of the interview with master actor turned director Jodie Foster. If you find the content valuable, please like, share, and subscribe, and we shall re-engage on part six of the Jodie Foster interview. Thank you for tuning in.